And what's happening, guys? Welcome along to another episode of 420 News. We had a bit of an extra long weekend there, guys. I needed a bit of a time off there Friday, so I hope you managed well without me out there, guys. It was a good old weekend, and I managed to get all my assignments done there Friday, so you might be pleased to know that. And I'm delighted to be back here with some more news to bring to you today, guys, out there in the YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, wherever you might be watching, guys. It's a pleasure to have you tuning in. Going to pack up a little bowl of civil disobedience there as we're waiting for people to join in the show. Give people a few minutes there to catch up with us, guys. So if you got it out there, guys, pack it up, roll it up, whatever form of consumption you got, get consuming, because it is a minute after 420. So happy 420 to you guys out there. See a few people tuning in there, right? What's happening, Keith? I'm doing good, man. Monsieur Fudge, what's going on? Excellent watching material while tending to the babies. Oh, lovely stuff, man. Hope the babies are all doing mighty fine. What's happening? Shitting in a bucket. He says, hey, drug junkies. Everybody else is doing good out there. We have the Reefer Man. I am Toby, Alter Ego, Peter Kelly. Hope you're all doing good, guys. Skatanist as well as out there. He says, hello y'all, smoke buds. I made it to the live show on time. High five. Yes, boom. That's out to you there, man. Blazing on up there for 420 anyway, guys, and we'll get right on into the news then in a couple of seconds. So there we go, guys, nice and blazed up for 420. Guys, before I get into today's show, I'd like to just take a moment to thank the 420.ie for sponsoring today's 420 news. So R420.ie is a new cannabis supply store that is opening up in Port Arlington. So do check them out. They're opening up on the main street of Port Arlington on May 17th, 2021. And they're going to be supplying you with some amazing looking cannabis smoking trays, ashtrays, bongs, pipes, rolling skins, they got jumpers, masks, literally like anything to do with, I suppose, cannabis and cannabis culture, cannabis accessories. It seems like R420.ie are going to be stocking it. So thanks very much, guys, for sponsoring the show. And guys, do go and show them some support there if you're looking to get some of any of the equipment that you see up there on screen. They've got lots of stuff up there to choose from. So thanks again, R420.ie, for sponsoring today's 420 news. Much appreciated, guys. And guys, just a further update there as well on the 420 kilometer challenge. It's actually on day 10. Apologies there, I should have changed that before starting live updates. There we go, day 10. So today is day 10 of 30, and we're going strong. Haven't done today's challenge just yet, but it looks like the weather is going to be clearing up there for us to do it this evening. So I look forward to get out there this evening with the dogs and me Smalley, and we're going to be doing another 14 kilometers off of the 420 kilometer challenge. Again, 20 more days left in this. To date, we've over €700 raised. So thanks very much to everybody who has sponsored that so far. Again, the fundraiser is for the Laura Lynn's Children's Hospice, which is a very worthy cause, and a cause that is very close to my own heart. So I hope I ever don't find myself in a position to be needing the services they supply. But again, I hope that people can continue to fund them and to support them in all of the great things that they do. And yeah, I see the Reefer Man is getting the runner's high for there's certainly it's something real about the runner's high, that's for sure, man. But again, guys, we're going strong, and I look forward to be able to finish out this challenge and to see how much we're able to raise for that charity, while also raising awareness about the needs for access to medical cannabis. Again, 420 kilometers wasn't a number chosen just by random, as you all probably are well aware. 420 News or 420.ie. There's so many things out there with 420. It's cannabis culture, so we're going to be raising awareness about the needs for access to medical cannabis here in Ireland. And the best way we can get access to cannabis in Ireland for patients is by removing the current prohibition of cannabis. So I'll be doing my part to raise awareness about that over the month as well. So again, thanks everybody for supporting that. And one final update, guys. Tomorrow in Cork, Bob Marley's 40th anniversary, and we're going to be out protesting in his honour. The weather is supposed to be a bit shitty at the moment, so bring your umbrellas, guys. Don't be bringing anything that you can't afford to be getting wet anyway. Certainly bring your own bongs, blunts, whatever, spliffs. Bring your own form of consumption. Oils, edibles. Edibles is probably the choice actually for tomorrow. If it's raining, it's going to be hard to get the lighters going and all that. So just keep that in mind. Couple of edibles there, rain jackets, umbrellas, guys. But rain, snow, or shine, we're going to be out there protesting for our rights to access this plant. As Bob Marley said, this is a human rights issue, and we hope that we can draw attention to it. So guys, I hope to see some people out there supporting us. In this, I look forward to seeing how many people we can get out there tomorrow. Just gonna head on over there. Second now. Excellent. Apologies there, guys. Just sorting out one or two things there in the background. Really gonna have to get someone up there to sort out the chat. I see a few people giving out because I don't know. The reefer man, you're a talkative guy. A few people messaged me they're like, your man's spamming your chat. He's spamming your chat. So just be mindful of that anyway. Make sure it's some useful comments coming in there. Apologies there now, guys, for the silence. Right, as I say, just be mindful of the comments coming in there, guys. I'm going to have to be moderating the chat a little bit more. Just because we just don't want the chat to be spammed. There was a lot of kind of stuff going in there the last day, and it was just kind of like, where's all this coming from? It was like a lot of random stuff. So the reefer man, just be cautious. There's people out there now moderating the chat, and if I don't really have too much control over what gets moderated out of there. So again, the community has spoken. So we'll drive on, guys, and nice one everybody for the comments coming in. It is much appreciated. I love the community that is building out there. Some great conversations that happen out there in it. What comments are out there? Steve Jones, he says, I'm doing edibles now. Excellent. Nice one, man. I hope it's something tasty anyway. Not too packed with sugar. That's one of my biggest issue with the edibles that I've been finding, is that a lot of them are like just packed with sugar. The most healthiest one I was able to find was like flapjacks. Obviously you can make fat bombs and things like that. But in terms of treats, it's hard to get ones that are not so packed with sugar. But I hope you're enjoying it anyway, man. And Podger Donovan, what's happening? He says, I won't make tomorrow, sad to say, because I'm sick at the moment and had a few rough days, but on the mend now. Good to hear, man, that you're on the mend. Sad to hear that you won't make it, but look, nice one for the heads up anyway, and we will be out there protesting, and I'll wave the flag a bit harder just for you and all, man. So guys, let's drive on. The first bit of news that we have out there for you today is that there's a teenager's mother was paying €400 a week in order to support the teenager's habit, if you will. This was a case that was coming out of the courts, and it was something I missed maybe last Wednesday when I was covering the 420 news. There was quite a bit of content to get through. But this boy that was aged 18 at the time was up before the courts in Dublin, and that was April last year. In contrary to the Misuse of Drugs Act, he's now 16 and he's been back before the courts again. And he was before Judge Paul Kelly in the district court, who told the boy he noted his mother was giving him money to buy the cannabis, and the boy replied yes to him, And the judge said that it was a strange state of affairs, and he was accompanied to the court by his father on this occasion. And the teen had engaged with the probation service. The judge was remarking, however, the judge remained concerned at his ongoing cannabis use and asked him if he had seen or read the recent news on the studies into the drug's effect on mental health. Now, in fairness, like, keep in mind, the judge is talking to a young person in front of him who's there because of drug use. And he's asking him, did you read the Irish Times there last week when the doctors, speaking all sorts of big words and all sorts of nonsense? Did you read that? Like, of course, like, what teenager is reading the fucking Irish Times? Like, in fairness, like, the judge, like, come on, what sort of stuff are you smoking at your lunch break, man? In fairness, like, no, this kid wasn't reading it, like, and should he have read it, like, do you know what I mean? That probably would have done more harm to him because it was full of misinformation and lies. But the judge has no problem in repeating some of the lies there in the court on about the harms posed to young people as in relation to the cannabis use. But the judge doesn't talk about the fact that a young person's able to get cannabis in the first place, like, in our society, so easily, and so much of it too, like, and to the point where his mother was paying over €400 a week to drug dealers for fear of what might happen to her son or her home if the drug debt wasn't paid. Scumbag this judge is, like, in order to engage in this kind of carry on in the courts, like, he should be really looking upwards rather than downwards in this case, like, because this young person is a victim here. He's using drugs at a very young age. That's a problem caused by prohibition, and it's made worse by prohibition. If this young person was to be using drugs that came from at least a regulated source, at least you wouldn't have the added dangers of getting adulterated substances. You wouldn't have the added dangers of him being in debt of €400 to some criminal gang who's willing to use violence in order to collect that money. All of these added dangers there, but the judge will never talk about this shit. But meanwhile, he will repeat some fucking nonsense from the psychiatrists that this cannabis is the gravest threat to our young people. Like, man, what a bad it's just such a bad kind of way to do your job, really, like, so ineffective. The judge went on to say that there are better ways of spending your money than on cannabis. The judge advised him as he adjourned the case for 6 weeks for an updated probation report and to be furnished to the courts. Reports, and then they talk about the that article that was released there recently over the last week. But really, like, it's a sad state of affairs here again. Like, a young person recruited by drug dealers, I suppose. He's like, I don't know. He's probably selling cannabis. You'd have to imagine if he's buying that amount of cannabis, he's probably selling it to his friends as well at the same time. The mother paying for it then as well. Like, it really goes on to show, like, how much prohibition has failed. Mothers will still pay for drugs for their kids. Despite the drug use being illegal. What does that tell you about making drugs illegal in order to deter drug use? It's not going to work. It's not. It's a failure, like, from the get-go. It's not worked. It's never worked. We've never even been able to prevent people from killing one another. With our laws, murder is illegal. Murder still happens, but nobody enjoys murder. Well, psychopaths enjoy murdering people as such. Like, but a lot of the times it's done in emotion or reaction to things, like, and there's a victim in it. So it's understandable then to punish the person who does that or who attempts to do such a thing. Whereas with drugs, the person who uses the drugs is the victim of their crime and they enjoy it. Why are we punishing them for it and creating a victim then in turn? It's a silly way of thinking. And we can see then how kids end up as victims as a result of that kind of way of thinking. Frank Fian, what in the name of God is he thinking when he talks about a health-led approach? This is a health-led approach where criminals control the drugs and they sell it to kids, and the kids are then in turn indebted to the drug dealers, and their parents then are fearful of the drug dealers, so they pay the debt of the kids. Yeah, that's a great health-led approach, man. Well done, fucking boola bus for you, boy. Idiots, like, in fairness, like, seriously, like, I just can't understand this way of thinking, the prohibitionists out there, like, that they can continue to come forward, the Bobby Smiths, the Mary Cannons, like, of the world coming forward, supporting this idea of prohibition, that look in the States, look the data, look, 14% increase in road fatalities, like, in fairness, like, is there not more people using the roads? Is there not more people coming to that state because their cannabis is more illegal in other states? So therefore you have more people now driving while they have cannabis in their system, but that doesn't necessarily mean that cannabis is connected to the debt. We all know out there, like, in the cannabis community, like, that has how cannabis is metabolized. It's a fat-soluble compound, so therefore it remains in the body a lot longer. So I smoke cannabis now, I go out and I drive tomorrow or the next day and I have a car crash. Well, I'm not under the influence of cannabis, but if I crash and die and they detect cannabis in my system through a blood test, they will put that down, in the statistics. Well, cannabis was correlated with this, that, there. So that adds to the number of drug-related road fatalities. You see how they do these things? Like causation and or correlation and causation, they're not the same thing. You can correlate something with something, but it doesn't necessarily mean it actually caused that thing you're correlating it with. And that's what's been done here in that regard anyway, with the road fatalities, which was one of the things that was mentioned there by Bobby Smith in his article against Gino Kenny. And it's worth checking out there, actually, that article. Gino Kenny gives his piece, Bobby Smith gives his piece. I might actually break it down in a separate piece there, maybe later on or something like that. But it's definitely worth to read anyway if you haven't seen it already. I think it's The Burning Question or something like that was the name of the headline. But yeah, we'll drive on with the news anyway, guys, because above in Dublin, there was a woman arrested after €72,000 worth of cannabis was seized in Kilmore. And Kilmore was quite busy over the past few days because there was a number of drug seizures up there in Kilmore. So in this first drug seizure anyway, there was a woman aged 37 who was caught up in the Garda raid when they raided a property in Kilmore, County Dublin, and they found what was €72,000 worth of cannabis pictured here. This was a joint intelligence-led operation conducted by the Garda National Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau, the Dublin Metropolitan Regional Northern Divisional Drugs Unit, man, that's a long one, and the Revenue Customs Service. So quite a few units again of our authorities involved in this. So quite a number of heads, again, all paid for by me, you, and other people out there who contribute to taxes, and we're not getting any value for money here. Because this woman was brought in for questioning, the drugs will be seized, but in reality, you know what I mean? This is a very small, like this is effectively a bucket out of the ocean. You know what I mean? This is in comparison, a bucket of water, and you went down to Yall Beach and you took out that bucket and you said, I've got the ocean in the bucket. You know what I mean? That this is no way comparative to the ocean of drugs that are out there. This is a very small bucket and a very large ocean of availability. This woman was caught with her cannabis. This cannabis is going to be destroyed. But how many people are out there available to supply the cannabis? How many kids are out there that have cannabis already? You know what I mean? I can go onto Snapchat right now and I can find cannabis on Snapchat. This has done nothing. A waste of money. Again, if we were able to control and regulate this would have been grown in a community, maybe by a craft grower who's able to employ people maybe who come in and trim the cannabis. There's a lab maybe associated with that then where the cannabis goes off for testing to ensure that there's quality standards, more jobs created, more revenue there, because there's more tax, more income tax there as well. So again, more benefits to society. We're all losing out in this. But meanwhile, the Gardaí get the pat in the back for themselves. Job well done, lads. Another 72 grand of cannabis there after being seized. Sure, well done. This woman, she's released now. She's probably going to get a slap in the wrist. She's probably not even going to serve time in prison, because a lot of the times they're not actually even getting sent to prison. She's supposed to get a 10-year minimum mandatory because this goes over that €13,000 worth of illegal drugs. She's as I say, she's only going to get a slap in the wrist. Why? Because they acknowledge, even within the system, that the system is silly. There's no point in locking this woman up for 10 years because it serves society no benefit. In fact, the better benefit to society is to give this woman a fine, a suspended sentence, maybe give her a 10-year sentence and suspend it for 20 years or something silly like that, because it's nonsense. She'll probably get a 3-year sentence suspended for 5 years. That's what will probably happen. Great value for money, really. And this woman then maybe might or might not go back to selling cannabis. Who knows? Again, this woman could have been a person who might have been passionate about cannabis and could have been a very beneficial influence there within society, within her community, creating jobs, creating opportunities, social events and all sorts of great things. But no, instead, she's a criminal, going to be brought before the courts and going to be tried as a criminal using our money. Sad. It's a sad state of affairs, and I hope sometime soon things will change. And it's going to take us, the people out there, to get up off our arses, get out in the streets and demand it. Stop asking for cannabis legalisation and demand it. Stop buying cannabis from criminals and just grow your bloody own. or support somebody else who does, and set up your own little network there between yourselves where it's not for profit. Get this idea of making money out of your heads for cannabis. The first thing we need to do is be able to get rights to access to grow this plant and to be able to use it for ourselves. And then secondary to that is somebody to be able to come along and set up a business and to be able to sell this stuff. But again, this stuff needs to be decriminalised, and the growing of it does not need to be controlled by our government at all, really, like when it comes to it. Yes, they should put an age limit in place at the point of sale, but for me to grow cannabis in my house, like, the government should have no input into how many plants I grow, how much cannabis I store in my house. Like, that's bollocks. Like, if they think they have a right to tell me how many plants I can or cannot grow, no, we shouldn't accept that at all. Like, because it's only just another form of discrimination, really. And we drive on then because above in Kilmore, as I said, quite busy above there. In a follow-up operation after the seizure, after the woman was released from the station. I don't know, was she after ratting on somebody or what's the crack? But there was another follow-up search in a house there then on Saturday. So this first seizure was made on Wednesday evening, and then on a follow-up search on Saturday, they found another 200 grams worth of cannabis above there. So I'm not too sure how they were able to put two and two together. Maybe they searched the woman's phone following her whereabouts. Who knows, really? Like, but they carried out a raid and they seized another €200,000 worth of cannabis there from that property. Again, this was a joint intelligence-led operation involving a number of units of our Gardaí. So again, another massive waste of time, of taxpayers' money. 200,000 worth of cannabis is going to be destroyed now. That's 10 kilos of cannabis. Maybe 10 or 20% of that would have been destined towards patients out there, because how many patients are seeking access to cannabis now because of reading as to how it might help with their chronic pain, with their insomnia, with their lack of appetite, with whatever it might be that they read that cannabis can help with. There's now people trying to get it, and they're getting it illegally, and they're relying on criminals and criminal gangs to do so. And they're suffering now because there's a less of an access there to it, or the way of getting access to it. It's not the way you want to be going to it. As I said, like, a bunch of kids on Snapchat now is kind of who's selling cannabis a lot of the times. That's silly. Like, I was talking to a woman in her 30s, and she was embarrassed because she went to get cannabis to help with her anxiety, and she got it from what she described to be no more than 16. She said the young fella came down and he was no more than 16. And she was embarrassed. She said, "I'm 30 hot." She goes, I didn't like it at all." She was like, what if that young fella's mum saw me buying cannabis off him? Like, and she's dead right too, like. But she didn't really have a choice. It's not as if she can pick and choose what dealer she goes to, because again, like, there's not like this. While there's an availability of them, there's trust issues. So there's big problems there for our people, and it's just the sooner we end this end the prohibition and put in place regulations, the better. So people like this no longer need to be seen as criminals, and people no longer have to be forced to support organised criminal gangs. I know, for one, I don't want to be supporting an organised criminal gang when I buy my cannabis. I would like to be seeing my cannabis grown by a person who's getting a fair wage for doing so, or maybe grown by myself in my back garden, just because I have an interest in growing and being self-sufficient myself. I've chickens out my back garden, I've strawberries, I've got cabbage, I've got spuds, I've onions. Like, I would love to be able to add cannabis to that, because it's in line with my self-sufficiency. It's in line with my ethos of wanting to reduce my footprint, carbon footprint or what have you, on the planet. But no, instead, I have to support somebody who's growing cannabis indoors using artificial lights, that's sucking from an energy grid that's maybe burning fossil fuels or some shit like that, instead of getting some lovely organic soil, outdoor grown, sun grown cannabis, which I would love to be able to do, but I don't have that choice, unfortunately, and that's because of prohibition. And again, we'll keep within Kilmore, because in Kilmore there was another €120,000 seized and €35,000 worth of cocaine seized. So 3 drug seizures there over the space of a couple of days above in Kilmore. So I don't know what the crack is up there. Like, do you know, what's the story? Is just drug dealing central, or what's the story? But 120 grand in cash, and again, the Gardaí, you know, that they love to get their tweets out about this stuff. And actually, apologies, it was 140 grand in cash. Actually, I'm undercutting them. It might turn into 120 grand by the time he gets to court. You know how these things go missing in the evidence room. But they seized 35 grand's worth of cocaine and 140 grand's in cash following a search operation in the Kilmore area, Dublin 5, on Saturday, the 8th of May. And one man in his 60s was arrested. And interestingly enough, the Gardaí, in their press release in this one, they actually stated that this had nothing to do with the other seizures in the area, but it was as part of an ongoing operation targeting known drug dealers in the area. And it was a joint intelligence-led operation by the Garda National Drugs and Organised Crime Bureau, the divisional, the DMR, North Divisional Drugs Unit, and the Regional Customs, the Revenue Customs Service as well. So again, more taxpayers' money, guys. This is all mine and your money. Like, this is money that could be used for mental health services. You know what I mean? Like, they talk about cannabis being the gravest threat to the mental health of your young people. What about the waste of taxpayers' money here, fighting a failed war on drugs, criminalising people needlessly, and spending money in areas that it need not be spent in, do you know? And what it does then in turn, by spending money in this area, by putting these laws in place, you create these fucking gangsters, these evil entities within our society, you know, these organized criminal gangs like that get so much more powerful because of this illegal drug trade. Let's not forget, you know, that report that came out by the Europol and what were they called? The Serious and Organised Crime Threat Assessment. That was the report that came out there, where they allude to the fact that like over 40% of organised crime gangs across Europe, the money comes from drugs, the drugs trade. Over 40%. It's the most reliant thing that they need to continue their activities, I suppose, if you will, which includes human trafficking. That comes in underneath that, like, you know what I mean? They rely on human trafficking for a lesser source of income, but it's still within there, and it's certainly going to be propped up and supported by the enormous amount of money that they're making in the illegal sale of drugs. Whereas if we were to just control and regulate it, that would sort it out in a big way. It wouldn't sort it out in its entirety, because look, alcohol and tobacco, they're controlled and regulated, but they're still sold illegally. But the important thing is we as consumers have a choice. We know, like, if we buy alcohol illegally, well, we run the risk of being fucking poisoned. We know if we buy tobacco illegally, well, look, you're going to be getting shitty tobacco that's coming in, and it's probably not even going to be the tobacco that you would buy at the shop. You know what I mean? You're going to be getting a substandard quality. Well, not all the time, but quite often or not. I've seen some of the fags being sold on the black market years ago when I used to be mixing my cannabis and tobacco. Like, it's not good at all. But again, we don't make cannabis, or we don't make alcohol and tobacco illegal because there's people selling it illegally. You know what I mean? So why is that being used as an argument against the regulation of drugs? Well, if you regulate it, look, in America, and again, that's Bobby Smith's argument in that article I talked about earlier, that in America, where cannabis is being regulated and legalized, the black market is still thriving. Well, what Bobby Smith doesn't talk about, actually, well, it's because of poor policies in other areas, and also because maybe of over-regulation too in the areas where cannabis has been legalized. You know, in states like Colorado, they've over-regulated it, and it's very hard for people to get licenses and things like that. So sometimes, yeah, people do engage in illegal activity, but also in states where it's illegal, well, now there's people will travel from those states and they buy cannabis in states where it's legal because it's, look, growing it in that state is now kind of a misdemeanor. So again, Bobby Smith's he's not very genuine with his arguments. He'll never really, there's so many holes in it, exactly, you know, and this is why he never wants to come on to any live kind of form of debate on this issue, because it's good to be able to go on to a newspaper, put your argument out there, and then go away and never actually really engage with any counter arguments to your argument, you know. But we'll drive on anyway in that. And it is the next headline is a man in his 20s was arrested after a massive operation, a drug raid which found €800 worth of suspected cannabis on weighing scales. So again, like this is the Pablo Escobar of his village. This was a drugs raid that happened in where was this? This was in Balbriggan. So in Balbriggan, as part of an intelligence-led operation, Gardaí raided a property and €800 of suspected cannabis herb and a weighing scales was found. This was at 6:45 p.m. in the evening over the weekend there. And a man in his 20s was arrested at the scene and detained at Balbriggan Garda Station under Section 4 of the Criminal Justice Act, and he's been since charged and released on bail. And in a follow-up search then, over €120,000 worth of cannabis was found at another property in the same area in Skerries, above in Balbriggan, in Dublin. So the Gardaí seized over €120,000 worth of cannabis, and a second man, again in his 20s, was arrested there too. These searches actually were carried out on Thursday evening. So this would have been covered. It should have been covered on Friday, but apologies for my absence there. But in that search anyway, 120,000 worth of cannabis that was found in 5 large vacuum packed bags, and I have some pictures there of that for you again, because the Gardaí love to put pictures up of cannabis. They love putting pictures up of cannabis more than the cannabis consumers. You know what I mean? The Gardaí can't actually get a bag of cannabis without putting a picture up of it. I've definitely got more self-control than that. But they say they seized over 120 grand of suspected cannabis herb and arrested 2 men following a number of searches in Skerries area. A number of searches, well, actually one of those searches was the one that found €800 worth of cannabis. So maybe that guy in that first search where the €800 worth of cannabis was after buying from this, and one led to the other then, you know. But again, it's only small. Like, shout out to anybody above in the area. Like, have you experienced the drought because of these raids? I think not. I would imagine not. Like, so again, like, more wasted time and taxpayers' money here in a failed war on fucking drugs. Cannabis that's going to be destroyed now, that could have brought benefit to people out there, that would have made a lot of people happy, but unfortunately it's been denied that opportunity because of these not stupid bloody prohibitionists who think that they can deter people from using drugs by putting in place a law that's going to criminalize you for that. Guys, that's not going to work. Sorry. It's not going to work. And we drive on and we come a little bit closer to home then in the last few bits of news here for you. And this is a guy who, I believe I reported on this guy before, but I could be mistaken. But this was from below in West Cork, where a pensioner who was convicted of drug possession for the 3rd time. In this case, a pensioner who was caught with over €1,000 worth of cannabis in his home. A man by the name of Michael Curtis, and he's age 70, like a 70-year-old man from Cool Mountain near Dunmanway in West Cork. He was before the Clonakilty District Court, where he pleaded guilty to 2 charges of possession of cannabis. Presiding over the case was Judge Colm Roberts, and he heard that on the 25th of September 2019, so over 2 years ago, like Detective Garda Andrew Manning, or almost 2 years ago, and other members of the Cork West Divisional Drugs Unit executed a search warrant at Mr. Curtis's property. Curtis handed over a small amount of cannabis worth €150, and the detection dog then found more cannabis worth €1,080 in another part of the house. His solicitor said his client was not dealing in drugs, and the judge remarked, "It's a lot of cannabis to have for yourself at 70 years of age." Curtis, who was originally a thatcher, who previously worked as a basket maker also, pleaded guilty to the 2 charges arising from the incident, and the court heard that this was his 3rd time to be convicted for possession of drugs, dating from 2019 and 2017 also. In 2017, he was also sentenced to 100 hours of community service. So in 2017, this man was 68. A 68-year-old man being given 100 hours of community service, like, for what? Like, for what? Like, what is the justification? Yes, he possessed cannabis. Yes, it is illegal, but it's beneficial for this man. It's a prophylactic. It helps with the aging process. It reduces some of those fucking dreadful things we experience as humans when we age. We have an endocannabinoid system. Maybe it's a part of the deficiency. You know what I mean? As we get older, where our body is less able to produce these endocannabinoids, therefore leading to things like Alzheimer's, pain, chronic pain, arthritis. You know what I mean? These are all a part of aging. Cannabis has been shown to be beneficial for these things. Why, as an old person, should you be denied access to this wonderful fucking plant? You're a scumbag, Judge Roberts, for continuing to criminalise this elderly man in his later years. Like, have you no compassion or remorse at all? Like, seriously, like, come on, like, do your job with a bit of integrity, man. Come on, like, can you not see before you a man in his later years, a man of many years of experience and knowledge, and you couldn't take a second to listen to him, like, you know, and instead you spout your opinionated nonsense, where the judge says, my concern is there is a lifestyle choice here, that this man believes he is above the law, and he says this is a man who should know better. But really, like, you know what, this man should know better. That, like, while no man is above the law, there is no law that is above us. Like, you know what I mean? In terms of our human rights, the laws that are put before us, when they're detrimental to our to our very existence, to our quality of life, then we as men, we have a right to stand up against these unjust laws. Have we learned nothing of the past, of the wrongdoing that were done by laws before us? You know what I mean? It takes brave men to break laws that are unjust. Do you know? That's what's going on here. Like, while this man, he isn't an outspoken activist or anything like this, like, yes, he is engaging in something which is bringing benefit to him. It's ridiculous that we continue to criminalise people any further for this. Like, it's really annoying. Like, Mr. Fleming said Curtis, who had lived in Ireland for 40 years and who is originally for Bournemouth, had told he was trying very hard to give up drugs. I see no progress, the judge said. Mr. Fleming said his client was aware he risked going to prison, although Judge Roberts said he could have undergone 3 treatment programs in the time since the incident. He may have been getting away with it for the past 50 years, so why would a tiger change its stripes, the judge said. The court heard Curtis had not come to guarded attention since, and the judge handed him a 3-month sentence, suspended for 2 years, and a warning that it was a fool's errand to try and give up drugs on his own. In fairness, like, you know, maybe why this man found difficulty in doing it is because it brought an improvement in the quality of life. And when he gave up cannabis, or when he tried to give up cannabis, the quality of his life was depreciating. It was getting less. It was getting worse. Why would somebody want to continue to engage in a behavior which is going to lower the quality of your life? Why would you try to enforce that upon a man to do that, and then look down upon him because he wasn't able to continue to do this? I'll not be a part of my own oppression, and I don't believe any of us should be. Why should we be a part of our own oppression? We shouldn't engage in this. These laws oppress us. These laws are detrimental to our very existence, to the quality of life that we live, to our kids who grow up out there, who are being recruited into the drug dealing trade. These laws are detrimental to all of that. It's about time we all stand up, like, because it's just going to be nasty where we end up if we don't see change soon. You know, I just play a thought experiment for you out there that are listening. You know, if the authorities, tonight were able to come up with a system or a magic wand, they were given a magic wand. You know, wave this magic wand, and everybody is going to follow your laws, and overnight nobody is engaged in illegal drug behavior anymore. You know what I mean? Illegal drug behavior stops. No, just imagine that, right? And now next we have drinking. Well, drinking causes health problems. Well, look, we were able to stop people from engaging in the abuse of their health by banning other drugs. Well, let's ban alcohol, and let's ban tobacco. Well, no, magic wand, boom, done. No, nobody's doing it. Like, well, where next? Oh, well, look, people actually are obese. There's too many obese people in our society. Well, let's actually control how people make choices around purchases of food. And, you know, you go to the supermarket, well, you're only allowed to buy so many sugary treats, you know what I mean? Because guess what? Sugar is a drug. Sugar is a drug, and a lot of our kids are addicted to it. But you know, with the wave of this magic wand now, the government are able to interdict in our lives, you know, as they've done for so long. You know, where do we draw the line, guys? We have to be able to draw the line somewhere, and I think we need to bring that line back. I think that it's gone too far. We've given the government too much control over what we do with our life, and that's bringing so much fucking pain and misery in our society. Criminalising people for engaging in a behaviour that probably brought benefit to them. That's silly. There was a man up in court there last week in Cork, in Middleton Courthouse, and he was up for, I think it was like €100 worth of cannabis or something like that, and the guy suffered with epilepsy, and he got off with a slap on the wrist, a donation to the charity court box. But that's great for your man, but it's terrible for us because he'll never speak up against that. You know, he won't be outspoken because I guess he has to protect himself again. But we need to start standing up and speaking out because this is going on for way too long. And who knows, maybe overnight at some stage the government might actually have powers to be able to lock us all up, to be able to deter us from our drug use, you know. They'll come out and take us all away, take our kids away from us, us illegal drug users. Because, you know, who knows, we could become like fucking China, where the government basically know when we wipe our ass and how much tissue we used. Sorry for that graphic image. I'll drive on, guys, because the next headline is a bit of an upsetting one again, and it's coming from above an Antrim up in the north, where a sick paedophile, a sick perverted individual who has walked free from the courts after being caught selling cannabis. And when I say this sick individual, well, this guy was caught before trying to take pictures of young girls going into the bathroom. He set up cameras in bathrooms and he was caught. Fucking sick pervert. And this guy was out there selling cannabis. So again, you go back to it, like, you know, and when you're buying your cannabis, you don't really have too much of a choice of who you get it from. And quite often or not, you don't know who you're getting it from because of the secrecy, the background there. You know, you have an account on Instagram, you have an account on Snapchat, and you go and you buy your cannabis. You have an account on the dark web even, and you go and you buy your cannabis from it. But you don't know who's behind it. You have no accountability, you have no traceability, you don't know who you're supporting. Whereas at least if I go to my local pub or the local off license, you know, at least I kind of know the business there and you can see who's registered and who owns it and blah, blah, blah. You know, all of that stuff that's there. But here, you know, a sick individual anyway, and there's a picture of him here, and I have no shame in sharing this guy's picture because, you know, he's worth to be fucking known. If this guy's in your area, be wide of him, be wide of your kids, protect yourselves, and don't buy your cannabis from him anyway, that's for sure. But this guy by the name of, they call him Creepy, Richard Creepy Cooper, and also the Family Beast by some of his ex-friends. He was basically caught, it was in KFC toilet years ago, trying to set up a camera and he was actually after successfully doing it. How he got caught actually was sick. His partner, his girlfriend, picked up his phone and found the videos in his phone, and she went to the guards. She went to the cops above there, the PSNI, I suppose it was, and she reported him for these sick crimes, and she later found out that he was actually after practicing on her. In doing so, horrible sick individual. Like, he should have been locked up for a very long time. Unfortunately, like, the system above there anyway, he got off on the charges, you know, and he was barred from having a mobile phone. But guess what? He still had a mobile phone, or not a mobile phone, a device that was capable of taking photographs, and he still had it. He was caught with mobile phones for his drug dealing and behaviours. He was stopped in one stage. He was caught with like 8 grams of cannabis. A search of his house found more cannabis. Another stop and search about a year or so later, he was caught with another 7.5 kilos of cannabis. With another follow-up search at his house, finding another 80 grams of cannabis there at his house. So again, like, he was quite involved in dealing. So who knows, if you're above there in the Antrim area, you could have bought your cannabis from this sick fucking individual. And it's not your fault. You know whose fault it is? It's the policymakers who empower individuals like this to be able to sell such a profitable product, to not only you as adults, but your kids as well. Imagine this sick pervert, man, selling cannabis to your kid. Imagine your young teenage daughter, 17, 18, like, going and getting cannabis from this sick fucking pervert. Like, man, yuck, like. And he gets off on it, like. He should be locked up and the key thrown away, like, for that shit that he was doing before, like, taking fucking photos of unsuspecting kids in a bathroom, man. Oh my God, give me a few minutes alone in a room with the guy, and he'll never be a problem again. Sick, man. This is why you need to grow your own. This is why you need to know where your fucking drugs are coming from, because you don't know what kind of sick, twisted individual you're supporting. This is why we need to end the war on drugs, and to be able to provide a safe and regulated avenue for people to be able to get access to their drug of choice. Because there's a nasty individuals out there involved in this, People are not involved in human trafficking and all of this nasty shit, like. They're benefiting from the prohibition. We take away prohibition, well, the human traffickers are still going to engage with it. Well, guess what now? Our Gardaí are going to be more powerful, more effective at targeting those people, because they're no longer going after cannabis consumers, cannabis sellers, because they're now a part of the our society, even the trade of cocaine and coca leaves, and we could be able to import in fair trade coca leaves where there's no blood associated with the trafficking or the supply. It won't even be trafficking any longer. It'll be just the importation of coca leaves, but instead we've this horrible prohibition in place where sick individuals like this guy are empowered, like. So I hope soon we can undo that and change that. And that brings me to my final headline, and it is, again, sticking back within Ireland, Blindboy. Blindboy, probably a well-known figure out there, much more well-known than myself, Martin Condon. But Blindboy, a guy who wears a plastic bag in his head, who speaks a lot more sense than some of our very well-paid politicians. I like some of his views and opinions there in the past on different things. I think he is very good way of articulating himself, but he's welcome, you know what I mean? Welcome along to the battle. We've been looking for more prominent figures to be able to come and be more outspoken on this issue. So I welcome you to this, Blindboy. It's great to see you there, involved in this. I'll be, I just would encourage you to be a bit more outspoken and a bit more coming with calls to action. You know what I mean? This nonsense on news talking about like waiting around for 4 to 5 years for these giant corporations to come and convince our government to legalise it. That should have been followed up with a call to action with the people out there. You know what I mean? The community, the thousands of cannabis consumers. Guys, don't wait for that to happen. Get out there and start protesting, start organising marches, and start growing your own cannabis. Like, don't wait for these corporate entities to come in and set up your own in kind of communities, grows, whatever, get Irish businesses to the forefront. Instead of waiting for these things, you know what I mean? A missed opportunity there for him. Another one was when he mentioned about Portugal. Again, he pointed to it as being a good system, but he didn't point out to the flaws within the system of decriminalisation alone, such as the illegal trade of drugs still going on, being in control of criminals. Whereas over in Portugal now, the decriminalisation has been to the benefit of the criminals. The criminals are now selling knockoff drugs. They're making even more money now than they were before, and they're in less risk of being arrested as a result of that. You know what I mean? You need to draw attention to these things, but with, you just, like, how long is that? Portugal's 2002. That's like almost 20 years ago now. Vincent Lavery and company there back in 2011 were pretty much saying some of the stuff that Blindboy has been saying there more recently. It's like we need calls to action now. We can't be waiting around any longer. The time for niceties is over. Like, people, like, and obviously, look, Blindboy is more of an influencer, I suppose, and rather than an activist. I wouldn't really see him as a cannabis activist, but I do welcome him to the ground as a cannabis activist, and I hope he can be a bit more a bit more engaged with us. Look, I'd love to have him on my own podcast. I would love to be able to get on his podcast. When I was running for government, in fact, actually, I made a number of attempts to try to get on to Blindboy's podcast because I thought my issues were in line with his issues. I suffered with problems with my own mental health as a result of the prohibition of cannabis. I outlined this in a very lengthy email to him, and unfortunately, I wasn't lucky enough to be able to get onto his podcast at the time. But look, that invite is still there, vice versa. You know what I mean? You can come here if I can go there. I'd be only delighted to be able to do it. If people know Blindboy out there, make him aware of it. He's shared my stuff before over on Twitter. He's aware of some of the protesting I have done. But I would love to be able to get him to be a bit more aware of the community that's out there around cannabis. It's a very strong one, and I think the time for action is now. So I'd love to be able to get Blindboy to be a part of that. I'd love to see him at one of the protests here in Cork. You know what I mean? Come on down, man. I'll give you the microphone, and you can speak to the people down here in real life, and you know that'll be great. Draw a lot of attention to the issue, for sure it would. So that's it for today's 420 news, guys. Do check out those articles by Blindboy if you haven't already done so. But yeah, as I say, thanks very much to everybody who's after popping into the show and commenting as it's been going through. I'll get back there now through some of your comments, guys. I hope everybody's doing good out there. Who's out there, guys? Sean Shakna, he says, judge is saying that stuff for the media reports that will come from it. Yeah, that's what's very true, man. That's so fucking true. But this is why the judges need to be saying more, I don't know, more beneficial things that will actually be more beneficial to society, that will actually protect kids, such as, rather than warning parents, warn the politicians that if they don't change these policies around drugs, there's going to be more and more young kids coming in situations such as that. I just hate that they've no integrity. That's the thing, they've no integrity, these judges, or any of them really, because they're all benefiting from this the way it is. So why would they speak out for change when they don't really benefit from the change? Like they do, they really do, but they don't see the value in that. They see the value in the having, you know, the continuation of it is, you know, that their job as judge and protecting these drug users. Like maybe some of them have this crazy fucking egotistical view of themselves, like as being the protector of the vulnerable. I don't know, man. I met that judge, Judge Garrett Sheehan, and he certainly had that view about himself, that him as a judge, he was helping the addicts by punishing them and giving them prison sentences, because in prison they got the help they needed. Lunatic is what he is. Oh, I'll get a bit of hydration into me there, guys, as I find some more comments there to read out. Monsieur Fudge is saying that this smoke at the minute is either the strongest I've smoked ever or funny. After living in Amsterdam and Spain, and after 20 years of smoking, I've come to the conclusion it's not real weed. Zombie hit off it in a half a spliff, if you can call it a spliff. Hence the only way to know what's gone into it is grow your own. 100%, man. I'm sorry to hear you got caught with that shit, but you're not the only one who's got caught with that shit. I got sent some images there by the guys out at South Coast Connoisseurs over on Instagram, and he got caught with some bud that had some funky looking grey yellow kind of spray shit onto it, and he uses a microscope, I think he said, or maybe he was using a jeweler's loop, which is what I would recommend anybody get out there. Like, it's only about maybe €5 to €10. You get a jeweler's loop online, and all it is a little handheld magnifying glass that you can look through, and you'll be able to get a good close-up view of the resin on your flower, and you'll be able to tell quite quickly if it's resin or if it's some sprayed on nonsense. And luckily enough for South Coast Connoisseur, he checked his stuff. He checks his stuff all the time, he says, and he found it to be sprayed with some yellowy kind of greenish gunky shit. He suspects it to be some of these synthetic chemicals, so that's very much possibly what you could have got out there. So guys, be very careful of where you're getting your cannabis from, and you know, if it is too strong, you know what I mean? If it's just a very strong hit off it, be just, you know what I mean? Don't be thinking, oh, this and then getting more bang for my buck. You know what I mean? Be thinking like, is this right? Should it be this strong? You know what I mean? Like, you know, just be careful. If you're a first time cannabis consumer, I pity you, man, because like you don't have anything to judge from at that point. You've no tolerance either. So you're now going to have your first time, and you're going to base your opinions on cannabis, on what something that isn't even cannabis, and that's balls. That is balls. How many people out there have suffered that affliction before? Really, like we really don't know, because cannabis has been contaminated now for quite a while. Other comments out there, and I'm gonna pack up another bowl there actually as I find some more comments. At least I can be doing something as I'm scanning through the comments. Marie McDonough, what's happening, Marie? I hope you're doing good out there. Nice one for your comments. She says here that yeah, and will cost us a fortune. She says it grows from the ground with sun. It shouldn't be the price it is, and she agrees with me 100%. Nice one for that. And she says that I saw that in the news, the gravest utter scutter. Yeah, look, you're dead right. Cannabis shouldn't be the price that it is, and it does. If it was grown outside under the sun, it would be pennies. It would be pennies, and there wouldn't be all these criminal gangs lining up to be able to sell it, recruiting your kids. It would be so much more easier to protect the kids and to prevent young people getting access to cannabis if we regulated it, just like we do with alcohol. Alcohol is regulated, and I believe we do a good job at preventing kids' access to it. Do kids still get access to alcohol? Yes, they do. But what do they also get? They get education. You know what I mean? They're not getting this just say no approach, and they're not also getting an adulterated substance coming from an unregulated source. So regulation works, and we've shown it through some of the studies that have come out over the last years that we're able to reduce the amount of young people using alcohol and tobacco through education programs. We could do the exact same with drugs. We could educate young people as to the harms of drugs, the real harms of drugs, and we can also educate them as to the benefits, how these drugs are used correctly and not abused. That's an important part of the education too. So when these kids do grow up, when they do choose to use a drug, at least they're educated in how to do it correctly, and they're able to maybe identify when they're getting into the area of abuse. Wouldn't that be much more a better approach? Like, oh, but maybe I'm smoking too much cannabis. Maybe my brain is rotted, and maybe I'm not making sense at all. Nah, I definitely think I'm making sense. Um, Nice one out there for those comments there as well, Sean. Saying well fucking said, lad. Sean also saying 70 years paying tax to be treated like that. When are the adults showing up? There you go. Like, when are the adults showing up? 100%, man. And 70 years of contributing to society, albeit only 40 years in Ireland, but still, like the man, like if that's all he's ever been in trouble for, like the guy has done well. Really, like he's done well. He's gotten through life without ever, you know, being up before the courts for robbing, for raping, for murdering. You know what I mean? Well done, man. The guy is a fucking successful human being, if you ask me. Um, and he's living down in Cool Mountain too, man. I know a few people in that area, so he seems to be maybe from a background of people that I quite well get along with. I love those guys down there in Cool Mountain. I used to do a lot of work in West Cork, fitting windscreens and glass and stuff, the machinery. So I used to be down there fitting glass in their vans, and very interesting characters, very cool stories to tell, and some cool skills and really good knowledge that they have, and a really interesting way of life too, you know. Very minimalistic, I suppose, if you will. I love that man. I'm glad these kind of people still exist out there. Certainly a dying breed. Francis Garland says dirty bastard doing that. It's people like him that needs to be locked up for life with no special treatments. 100%, man. I couldn't agree with you more. You know what I mean? I could say a million and one horrible things about that individual there doing that to kids, but like you all feel it as well, so I won't go any further on that really. Like, I know the feeling that's out there. Nobody likes that kind of carry on. Nobody's sympathetic towards that. Like, I don't think there's anybody out there saying let's legalize child pedophilia. Like, I know there probably is some sick fools out there that are saying it, like, but they're very much a minority, and there's a victim involved. So no, you can never legalize this sort of thing, when there's a victim involved in it. Sorry, but no. Paul Gray says Blindboy did good, but Portugal is not much better than the system we have already. Yeah, 100%, man. I just think there was a missed opportunity there for an update on his argument, I suppose, really in relation to Portugal. When looking to it as an example, we can't look at it as an example without drawing the attention to the failings of it, and how we can improve upon it as a model. That's very important to be done. When you look at Portugal, is say, look, Portugal is great, but you need to regulate the drugs. You can't leave it in the control of criminals. Otherwise, we're screwed. And Paul Gray also adding in there, Vice did a show on cannabis sprayed with synthetic cannabinoids. They did actually, and I mentioned that actually on the show when it came out. And again, I do recommend people to check it out. I think it was coming out of like Germany, France, or something like that, where the guys were buying in like hemp. Basically, they were getting in low quality cannabis and they were spraying it with synthetic cannabinoids and selling it on as what they were calling haze. I think that's what they were calling it. So do check that out if you haven't already done so. Sean Wins, what's happening, man? He says, Martin, I've been getting a lot of edibles and so far they've all been great, but I read recently that they are probably all chemically infused, not natural like. Can any edibles from random Insta Snap suppliers be trusted? And even if they are chemicals, are they harmful or less / more harmful than smoking buds from strangers? Well, I suppose, yeah, there's certainly more risk there from them, because at least when you're smoking a bud from a stranger's, there is ways of which you can identify the contaminants on the bud before you grind it up, that is. So yeah, there is that added danger with the sweets. It's very hard for you to be able to look at the jelly and be able to say if that's synthetic or not. With cannabis, if it's sprayed on, there's definitely ways of telling, such as the damaging of, or the washing away of the trichomes on it, because of the spraying on of the chemicals, the synthetic chemicals in a solvent that damages the trichomes, the natural resin that's on the plant. So you'll be able to see that. Also, it leaves a layer of an unnatural looking residue on the plant. You'll be able to see that. You can't see that in jellies. Also, I suppose then the amount that could be put into a jelly, these chemicals, like say if your dose of THC was 1 gram, let's say, well, a dose of that chemical could be 1,000 times less than that. So 0.0001 of a gram, I believe, or 0.001 of a gram would be the dose of that. So do you know what I mean? So if you were to just scale it up, a kilo of cannabis would be your dose, and 1 gram of that synthetic shit is your dose. And you know that's the equivalence in terms of strength in you know, those synthetic chemicals. So that's what you have to be very aware of. The acute toxicity, like there's a big danger there from that. So just be very careful, I suppose, with the edibles. Make sure you're getting them from a trustworthy source. Online vendors, Weedy Wonka was one, but again, like I don't know where they're getting their stuff from. Like Weedy Wonka was making edibles from extracts he was buying in from somewhere else. I don't know where he was getting his extracts from, but it seemed like the guy was getting repeat customers. It seems like his extracts were good, but again, like that's just upon visual, like, you know what I mean? Don't judge a book by its cover. Trust but verify, very important term. But yeah, there is a few names out there. Weedy Wonka was probably the most prominent one I know in the edibles scene anyway, that I know of. But yeah, just be careful with edibles. My advice would be probably make your own. It's hard to make your own jellies, but look, if you can make a nice butter, then you're going to make some nice cookies, you make some nice brownies, you make some nice queen cakes, like, you know. If you're into keto, if you're like myself, if you're kind of anti-sugar, Then maybe some fat bombs, peanut butter. You know what I mean? There's good ways of infusing cannabis there yourself, without having to rely on some of the dodgy edibles that are out there. You know, those stoner patch dummies and shit like that. I don't know, man. And the stuff is overpriced as well. Like, seriously, like 20-30 euro there for a bag of jellies. Stop, boys. You must be fucking rolling in it if you're able to go out and be buying those things. Because I've gotten them. I was at the Smoker Poker with the lads. We meet up kind of on the Saturdays and we have our game of Smoker Poker. And one of the lads brought edibles there one day. He brought those stoner patch dummy dolls things, whatever they are, the gummies. And they were weak, man. I didn't notice much off them. I made the brownies the following week, and the same guy was fucked. You know who you are if you're watching. So much so that I was actually banned from making brownies the following week. I was like, Martin, you're not allowed to make brownies anymore. The game was fucked up. Nobody could concentrate, and everybody forgetting who was next and whose call it was, and happy days, man. Good times. It was a fun game of poker. We finished it. I didn't win that one, but yeah. Who's out there? Fur Grace, he says the ashes look weird as well. Yeah, that's with the sprayed stuff, man. Yeah, there's certainly a difference there with the ashes afterwards, depending on what's sprayed in it. And Paul Gray adding in there that Willy Wonka is 100% chocolate grey for making canna choco. Interesting, man. Is that the Willy Wonka chocolate bars, is it? You just melt that down and make extracts with that? I was on about Weedy Wonka, not Willy Wonka. Weedy Wonka, that was an Instagram page, but maybe corrected you here and put in Willy instead of Weedy. So yeah, guys, I have a bowl packed up there. Get your comments in the next couple of seconds if you want me to read it out. Otherwise, I'll be wrapping up in like less than a minute or two there. So I'll blaze up one more bowl of civil disobedience there with you guys. Online protest. And Andreas, man, apologies there, man, if you feel like I've been ignoring you. I overlooked your comments there. Apologies. There's just so many comments coming through there. As I'd be scrolling through, I do tend to miss some, so I do apologize, man, if I missed your comments. Andreas is asking there. He says, yeah, but what's the point, Martin, if you grow the weed and you go to jail? Well, if you have cannabis in your possession, you could go to jail anyway, Andreas. So why not? Because you're protecting yourself like that. That's the whole point, and it's a protest. The government are failing to put policy in place where it'll protect you as a consumer, and they're infringing upon your rights as well. So that's the most important point, was we have to stand up for ourselves. We shouldn't be waiting along all the time for the government to give us permission to do something that we know is right. If you know something is right, then do it. You know what I mean? Stand by your morals. Laws shouldn't define morals at all. If you have to go to prison for standing up for your beliefs, then fuck it. Like then so be it. Like I'll be there alongside you. I think more people need to stand up for their beliefs. You know what I mean? If you look at Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and the things they done over in America for the rights of the black people over there at the time. Like if those people kind of thought to themselves, like, well, if I break a law, if I disobey this law, I'll end up in prison. Well, we wouldn't be where we are today because of that. You know, Rosa Parks, what she did, like civil disobedience, she went in and she sat on the seat that was assigned for a white person, and she wouldn't give it up for a white person. She broke the law. She disrespected the law. She didn't wait for the government to give her permission to sit on that seat. She just done it. She was just like, you know what, I'm sick of waiting for you. We've been nice all along. We've been petitioning, we've been marching, we've been emailing and phone calling. You know, obviously didn't have emails in her time, you know, and just kind of bring it into her own time. But she was just like, you know what, yeah, that was it. And that's what we need to do now. Like, how long have we been protesting? Like, you know, how long more are we going to continue this nice way of approaching it? Like, look at Gandhi and what they did over in India. Again, a peaceful form of protest, civil disobedience. They did not want to take part in their own oppression. Why should we take part in our own oppression? If you have to go out and buy your cannabis from a fucking kiddie fiddler, that doesn't sit well with you. Do you have to go out and get your cannabis from an organised criminal gang who are bringing in Vietnamese kids and keeping them as hostages, as slaves, and growing cannabis? Like, that doesn't sit well with me. So sorry, I will not be a part of my own oppression. No way. Cannabis has brought a benefit and an improvement in my quality of life, and I would like to improve upon the way in which I receive it. And I don't want to be empowering any criminal organisations anymore. I done that as a young person. I highlighted here on the show as a young person, like how I was a pawn out there for drug dealers. You know, I was buying cannabis at the time, and the drug dealer, seeing the opportunity, was like, well, look, buy an ounce, sell 3/4 to your buddy, and you get your own free quarter. I was like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And before I knew it, like, it went from an ounce to 2 ounces to few ounces to bars to keys. And do you know what I mean? That's bollocks. Like, I mean, if I was to continue that, like, I probably would have been locked up. Maybe one of these people I would have been reporting on in the 420 news if I continued that way. But no, I was just like, bollocks to that. Like, we can't continue that way of doing things. So we need to stand up and speak out, and demand change. And you know, that's what I'm doing. I've set up a little network there now with myself and my buddy. My buddy does a bit of growing of cannabis, and I will help cover the costs of the growing of cannabis. And we're able to prove that what we're doing is not for profit, and that you know, it's harm reduction and it's a protest. And that's what we're prepared for. If my buddy is to get raided and he has to go to court, I'm going to be showing up in court alongside with him, because I'm a part of his collective. And that's what I'm encouraging more people out there to be able to do. Sign up with your buddies, start your own little collectives, grow your cannabis together. Don't do this alone. There's power in numbers. You know, if you have to do it alone, do it alone. Like, but I would encourage you, like, not to do it alone. If you yourself, if you know 2 or 3 other people who consume cannabis, and if you're able to grow it, if you've got a spare room or if you've got a bit of extra room in your bedroom, do you know, like, go for it. Like, just stop relying on these criminals. Like, that's why. Like, it's worth going to jail for that. Like, in my opinion. But as I say, maybe I'm a bit crazy. But again, apologies, Andreas, there, man, for missing over your comments. It was a very good question you ask, because a lot of people will ask that question. Why would I grow cannabis when I risk going to jail for it? You know, if I got caught with cannabis for my own personal use, Blindboy pointed that out in his article, you know, and it's a very well pointed out. It's very true. But we as a community need to unite, and that's what we're trying to do here. Don't do this stuff alone. Unite and have the human rights aspect at the core of what you're doing. A protest, harm reduction. We all have rights as humans, and we deserve to be protected and not discriminated against. And yeah, you're saying up above as well, you don't know why they won't legalise weed. Well, they won't legalise cannabis because they get so much control over it. They get so much benefits from it. You see how the government's going to benefit because they can blame some of the problems caused by, say, poor policies that are there, maybe in access to jobs and shit like that. You know what I mean? They can blame it on drug use. Do you know, mental health issues, drug use. Like, that's what's happening out there. Like, drug use is being used as a scapegoat by governments for so many other societal issues out there. So this allows the government not to deal with these other societal issues. So they benefit from it. This is how the government benefit from the war on drugs. You see it out there. You see even like recently there, Sinn Féin, like, were calling for a diversion of the money seized by Gardaí and revenue from drug dealers to be used in the communities it's been seized from. Like, these politicians are benefiting there again from this fucking war on drugs. Because, like, to the average Joe Soap who can't really read into this stuff, they see it as a good thing. Oh, this is great. Money is going from the drug dealers back to the community. But wait a second. Why are the drug dealers making the money in the community in the first place? They're selling fucking substandard drugs to people, putting them at risk. And then we're going to pat ourselves in the back for taking the money off of those drug dealers then afterwards, after the damage is done. Oh my God, like, man, it's crazy, like. This was your man Morris Quinlivan again, like, and sorry for keep bringing him up, like, but he just pops up on my bloody newsfeed the few times I happen to go onto Facebook there from times, and it's just really annoying, like. If he really cared about his community and the people within it and wanted to do good, give drug users a safe and regulated avenue to get access to their drug of choice, and use the money that's gained then through that avenue and put that back into the communities, and it'll be tenfold more effective, because you don't no longer have the criminals so empowered and embedded within the communities any longer. Because, like, again, use alcohol for an example. Why would you go to a criminal down the road to get your alcohol when you can go to a pub to get your alcohol? Like, the criminals cannot undercut the pubs and the off licenses without producing a substandard product. If they could, like, do you think, like, Linden Village, like some of the cheaper alcohol beverages out there, that if they could produce it any cheaper, they would? They wouldn't. Of course they would. Do you know, it's that's why these budget alcohols are so cheap. It's as cheap as they can get it without going into territory that's dangerous. And that's what would happen if you go buying it from these unscrupulous sources, as was seen in the ring that was busted there in Cork maybe a year or so ago. There was a guy fucking making his own poachine or whatever it was in the house there on the lower road in Cork. And there was guys buying it from him, but it was poor people buying it from him because he was getting it cheaper. But they were getting it cheaper because it was being made in his bloody room in his gaff, and it was shit. It was dangerous, but the guys in the street were loving it. But you know, fucking, it's a mad one. It's a fucking mad one. Hopefully soon we'll see change. Hopefully. For Grace is saying, get up and grow, deep root garden in the grow shop, and a few more that I can't remember. There are one in Little Island, 2 West Coast grow. There's one in Little Island. I didn't know the one in Little Island, but there's one down in Carricktool as well called Grow Nation. All really good stores in Cork anyway, if you want to be getting some gardening supplies. And online, guys, you can't go wrong online as well. There's numerous stores online. Obviously people don't want to get stuff delivered to their house in case they're growing at that house, but look, there's other places you can get it to as well. Maybe a friend might receive it as a favor for you. But who knows, like, definitely go to support local anyway if you can. Don't be buying your grow stuff on Amazon, although it is cheap on there too. Alright, so guys, I'm going to leave it there, and I see a few more comments there from Joe Williams and Monshore Fudge as well. Apologies, guys, for missing your comments there. Jeez, they must have been popping on. Joe's saying that if everyone just smoked it like it was legal, they wouldn't be able to arrest us all. Backlog the courts, overgrow the government. 100%, man. Joe, you're singing from the same hymn sheet as me, brother. 100%, man. I'm there with you on that. They can't arrest us all. There's not prisons big enough for us, and together we're stronger. If we all just stand up and publicly disobey this law, like they would have to address the fact that this law is no longer no longer effective. You know, so we have to make that a case. Monsieur Fudge as well saying there, keep blazing and stand up and be counted. Like UB40 said, we are the 1 in 10 or 9 out of 10. Yeah, man, there's a lot of us out there certainly who you know, we just have to make that known. So together stronger, guys. Get out and be counted. And Joe's also saying, see you tomorrow, Martin Bro. Great show again. Joe, if you're coming down to Cork, I can't control the weather, so bring your umbrella, man. Be prepared for rain. We are expecting showers. So just be cautious there of that. It's going to go ahead nonetheless anyway. My speaker, the speaker that I have, is not waterproof. So again, we might be reduced in our ability to blast out the music there. We'll get stuff done anyway. Like, so 3 to 5 o'clock tomorrow, guys. Cork City outside of the library. Look forward to seeing people down there as well. Yeah, Andres saying it's good, bud. And no, I'm looking for weed seeds. Well, weed seeds, there's loads of those online as well. DNA Genetics, Sensei Seeds, Barney's Seeds, they're just but a few. Dutch Passion, they're some of the more reputable ones out there. Again, I can't wait to get to understand the American cannabis market more and get to meet some of the cannabis seed breeders over there, because there's some really cool work going on over in the States where guys are just growing one particular strain over and over again, selecting particular phenotypes within that, you know, really homing in their genetics, where, like, let's say a lemon skunk, like, and it's actually like lemons, like, just because of that homing in the genetics, like really looking for that one that really expresses that profile. So yeah, I look forward to those things. And for Grace actually as well, man. Cork Herbal Products stock some souvenir cannabis seeds as well if you want to be able to store genetics into the future to a point where maybe you can grow them legally. So right guys, I'll leave it at that. And again, just before we go, I'd like to thank R420 Supplies. Pop up their website there as well, just so you can see that. Hopefully I didn't close it today. No, there it is. So again, thanks to the R420.ie. They're opening their store again, as I say, on the 17th of May next week. So do check in, pop into their store, check it out, and also check out their website there online, r420.ie. Thanks very much, guys, for sponsoring the show. It's much appreciated. This is going to help the support for fighting cannabis legalization so much more. If there's other people out there, if you'd like to be one of the sponsors on the show, do drop us an email. There's opportunities there to be sponsors for 420 News and also for the interviews that I do outside of the 420 News as well through Martin's World. So again, guys, see you back here at that all-important time of 4:20 on Wednesday. So I look forward to that, guys. Thanks very much, everybody, for tuning in today. Look forward to reporting some more 420 news. Hopefully we got some better news to report on Wednesday. But until then, guys, stay blazed and keep our lit. Much love and respect, guys. Peace. '17 to 20 that happen out there in
You cease. Oh my god. That $5. I saw it show up because the text was so big. Oh my god, it still scared me though. Thank you for the $5. Because I don't know when it's coming. Just because I see it, the alerts are timed weird as heck sometimes. Pot. Oh, look, it's a key with a face. Oh, it's a chicken. Is that a chicken? Look, I got scared by a chicken, okay? Nobody laugh at me. Can I take this lantern?